Okay, Frank. So you have a Starlink and you're about to embark on a Starlink Mini. Just kidding. But maybe. Now, okay, let me get this straight. Okay, so you're in a house. Let me frame the situation. Frank is in a house. This is
A house
it's a house.
with a roof,
He's in a structure.
walls, mostly walls, lots
There's
of walls.
a window. There's a window.
It's
Uh,
definitely a window there.
there's
Plant.
there's artwork of a horse. That's there. Okay.
Got to keep it homey.
Okay, so normally, okay, so I am also in a house. I'm in a structure, okay?
Fascinating.
And
Okay.
there are walls and a window and there's a roof. Now, here
Civilization. It's wonderful.
here is my internet setup, okay? Like
Mm.
most people in the world, you
Human
have
beings. Okay.
a modem, okay? A modem. There's a cable connection coming from the wall
Uh-huh.
from my ISP, my internet
Ooh.
service provider, just
What's
Spectrum.
your modem do? Does it modulate and demodulate?
I don't know. It takes the coax and it turns it into Ethernet. That's what it does.
Cool. Love it.
Yeah, I believe I believe that and something about doxing. I don't know. That's what it does. There's like 3 doxi, and that's
We
what
can
it
stay
does.
at this level. I like this level. This is a good level to stay at. We do not need to talk about the radio frequency encoding of digital data through the cable network.
Through the tubes and the pipes. Okay. Now, some people, if you have one device in your house, now some people, this modem is also a router. If you're a sucker
Oh,
and you
yeah.
buy this from your internet service provider, you're a sucker and you should
Buy your
not be
own
doing
modem.
that. And you're not even buying it from, you're renting it from them. Why are you doing that? Don't do that. You go to Goodwill and get a router and a modem that is going to be definitely not have the latest firmware at all. But you can get a good
Well,
modem, a good
uh-huh.
modem for like $40. DOCSIS 3
Okay.
up to a gig. It's good, right?
You know, there are some people that still have to use DSL also. So they have their little telephone modem. It's
True.
still a modem of sorts, but it's for the telephone, not
Yes.
for the cable.
And if you're on dial-up, then there's also going to be a little box that gets dialed
The
into.
classic modem, the good buzzy modem. Oh,
Yeah,
love
it's
those tones.
It's the good. That's what I had growing up, and it was delectable. Okay, so if you only have one device in your house, you could take
Mhm.
an Ethernet cable from your modem. So the cable comes in, cable coax comes in, boop, and the
Mhm.
modem turns it into the internet, and Ethernet comes out, and you could plug that into a computer that has an Ethernet port into it, and you could get internet on one device, Frank. That is a thing that could happen. Now, let me ask you a question. Can you do this with, is your Starlink the modem? Like, is there an Ethernet? There's no pipe coming in. There's wireless. There's satellite coming down, but there's an Ethernet tube out of it that you could plug a computer into. Is that a thing that could happen?
Well, James, as with all good answers, it's complicated.
Oh gosh.
At what level do you want me to even begin answering this question?
I'll just say yes or no. It's a very simple yes or no question. Is there an Ethernet port on the back of your Starlink that takes the satellite tube rays, turns it into internet, and could pipe it into your laptop that has an Ethernet port on it?
No.
Okay, cool. No, okay, cool. Okay, so this is good to know. This is good context. I have no idea how Starlink works. Okay.
And everyone is screaming. Anyone with Starlink is screaming right now. But I had to answer James literally for what he was saying. Like if you go to Mr. Elon and say, Mr. Elon, I'd like to buy a Starlink.
Yes.
And he for $20 he gives you a Starlink, and it comes out of the box. I answered that question truthfully.
Okay. Out of the box.
Because Mr. Elon wants to charge you for that Ethernet adapter is what I'm about to say.
Exactly, because out of the box, if you buy a modem, the coax to internet tube, boom, out. Now, no one is going to have just a single device in their house. Highly doubtful. It's possible, but it's a good backup plan. For some reason, if your router, which takes one internet tube pipe and turns it into multiple internet tube pipes, and also often a wireless tube pipe, then that's kind of cool. As well. So it takes that one and it splits it up. It's like, now it's multiplexing the internet. That's usually the setup, right? That's why they sell a 2-in-1, because they're like, this will be easier. No, it's a sucker move, okay? Because there's not going to be good devices. You have complex houses, like, and I'm going to tell you about my setup too, that I have in in the house, because there's multiple of these devices. I have a satellite device, not satellite like Elon, but like satellite. So
Uh-huh.
no, this is the normal setup. All my life, I've had modem, purchased it on the internet, router. They usually have
Router.
dangly things. There's like 1,000 little like antennas that come off of it, because why not? I just figured the bigger the device, the bigger the antenna, the more powerful it is. Not necessarily true. Like the Netgear, like blah blah blah, Nighthawk shenanigans.
They look funny at least, yeah.
They look ridiculous. And I'm all about
Okay, so
sleek and modern. So is that
now
how would you even get something? Do you even have a router in your house? How do you even get internet?
I got
from
routers,
Starlink?
baby.
Oh, I got routers. Okay. So
Now that
that's
I
the normal
answered
setup. How do you get that set up with the Starlink?
Okay. I gave you the truthful answer.
Yes.
Now, can I give you a slightly more detailed answer? Because it is fun
Yes.
to nerd out about these things a little bit. The Starlink itself is also a modem. It just, instead of using wires to transmit the EM signal, it has an antenna. And that signal is traveling through the ether, as Newton would describe.
Yeah.
It's just out there, baby. So that signal, however you receive a signal, whether it's a piece of metal, strung across the continent,
Mm-hmm.
or a radio signal, or a Wi-Fi signal, signal, you're going to have a modem, something to convert from radio frequencies into digital data. And the Starlink most definitely is doing that. It's just talking to a transmitter that happens to be 300 miles up in space.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So does it have a modem? The modem it's hard to answer because there's probably a modem baked into the dish itself.
Yeah.
That's how I would design
it's taken the internet rays from the satellites.
Yeah.
And it's turning them
Internet
into something
rays.
that's ready. So is there a dongle like on the Starlink?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Mr. Elon invented I think it's a proprietary connector. Everyone write in and yell at me. It's probably not a proprietary connector, but what it basically is power over Ethernet.
Oh.
So there's definitely digital communications happening over it, but there's also electricity being transmitted over it, and so the cable itself feels just like a normal network cable. I think it's just a different connector because, as far as I understand, it just breaks all the power over Ethernet standards. Like they just did their own voltages, their own currents, that kind of stuff. So you can't really use it for anything, and it does have a funny little connector on it. And so when you buy the unit, you have the dish, and they do give you a Wi-Fi router. So there's no Ethernet jack on it at all.
Oh.
But it is a Wi-Fi router, so you can connect multiple devices to it. No funny little antennas, sir. Mr. Elon put it all into a rectangle, and there's very obvious spots that should be satellites that glow on it, but the LEDs never light up. So failed sci-fi UI on the cool SpaceX router.
Interesting. I'm looking at what's in the box now, and I see there's router and Starlink cable and an AC cable, and then the Starlink dish. Okay, so you have the Starlink Wi-Fi router. So it has ABGN, AC, Wi-Fi 5, dual band, WPA 2, no WPA 3. Interesting. Okay. So
here's the thing, though, James. I'm like you. No merge conflict here. I want to run my own network. I don't want Elon's network.
I don't want that. I don't want what's in the box. Nobody wants that.
No one wants.
I don't want
Exactly.
that. No one wants that garbage that Elon is selling inside that router. I want my own garbage router that I overpaid for, and it better have time machine capsule built into it. Dang it!
I do want to give
when your router used to have a hard drive in it from Apple, and then it would just back up every.
Oh, yeah, kind of missed that one, honestly. I have a catchphrase. It's not a catchphrase. I have a slogan. It's not even a slogan. It goes something like this. The worst software developers out there work for hardware companies. I'm sorry, everyone. Please write to James. Please write your responses to James. But I have to give full props. I think that the Starlink app connected to their router is actually a really nice setup. They've done a really good job with the app.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to run it.
Yeah. Does this? Oh, one quick question too is like, I see that this router has a 50-foot cable. The AC cable
Mhm.
is 6 foot long. So you plug in the Starlink uh, to power, or the router to power.
Well, the power goes over the one cable to the Starlink. So there's one cable to the Starlink, which is both your network cable and your power cable. So your wall power goes into the router.
Got it.
It's
And
not a
that's
router. Yeah.
powering the Starlink. So it's
It's
like you.
also a power relay station. Yeah.
Oh, so you have to have it now. The
Yes.
router, I assume, does that have to be inside, or can it be outside?
That has to be inside, James.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
These are delicate Wi-Fi devices that
Okay.
are pumping house power out to a dish that's getting rained on it as we speak.
Got it. Okay. Cool. So
Yeah.
so that
So,
dish needs to be within 50 feet, basically. Unless I'm sure they
yeah.
sell a longer one. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm curious what the limits are because yeah, you could get longer network cables for sure, but power, I don't know what voltages they're putting over there. The thing consumes about 100 watts. That's what it's rated for. I haven't really measured it. It's hard too because you have the Wi-Fi router, so it's hard to distinguish which one's drawing which power.
Hmm.
But all right, so conundrum. What does one do? So there are actually third-party devices to intercept the cables and get straight Ethernet off of the dish, though you still have to power the dish. So they all become like these Y connectors that you do, like a little, I don't know what you call those, little interceptor, little joiner guy.
Mm-hmm.
SpaceX sells them. Why do I keep saying SpaceX? That's not the right company. Whatever this company is, Starlink, they sell devices that do this intersect for you and expose a real Ethernet jack, just like the 1980s, 90s. I don't know. When did Ethernet come out? So from that, I can establish my own network. But I'll tell you, I've run into problems. Like, we can get into it. It's not very interesting, but I do run like a pretty big network aside from that. I have tried to turn off the Wi-Fi parts of their router and have failed miserably. I was just complimenting their app. Now let me insult their app. They have a setting, turn Wi-Fi off, and they're like, dude, don't do this. And I'm like, what? It's fine. And they're like, no, you don't get it. Like, we do tricks, and those tricks aren't going to work because the app's not just the Wi-Fi router app. It's also the is my Starlink facing the right direction? Are there obstacles? Is it happy? Is it sad? You know, just mood ring stuff. It's important information. You have to check it sometimes. And they're all like, look, if you do this very tricky thing and they give you these very detailed instructions for like how to reroute all data through your router so that you can still access all the special features of the Starlink through the app. And I printed out the instructions, I studied them, highlighted sections, did some Wikipedia, did some ChatGPT, make sure I fully understood everything, double checked all my network settings, went and did it, checked the box, says, yeah, man, I'm good. I did follow the instructions, complete meltdown. I thought I'd completely bricked the Starlink. I thought I was going to have to return it. Thankfully, I was able to, after a few hours, hit a reset switch, get it back up and running. And from then on, I've had 2 Wi-Fi networks, and I will never touch that one ever again. I just try to do my best of putting them on separate channels and frequencies.
Got it. So yeah, you have this night. Okay, got it. So you have these things just lingering and doing their own thing. So that means that, which is okay. You know, you can have things doing its own thing. Like obviously, you know, the one router is not really doing anything; it's just hanging. So it's not like it's actively sucking down it's probably sucking down some power, but it's not actively sucking down, you know, bits and bytes, basically.
It's surprising. Like, have you brought up an app like Wireshark lately?
Oh,
With like Bonjour and all the background services, you'd be amazed at how noisy all these routers are. Open up open up Wireshark, put it on promiscuous mode, and just watch. And it's just like, oh my goodness, the screen will scroll faster than you can ever keep up,
Oh yeah.
especially if you're in like an apartment complex or something like that.
Oh yeah.
It's amazing. So the little engineer in my head hates the idea of clouded, crowded frequencies.
Yeah.
I see all the electrons buzzing around me, and I don't like it. I just want my electrons on my frequencies. But like I said, I've given up. I failed. I'm not that good at networking, I guess.
Well, I think that's like when we lived in, some apartment complexes in Seattle that had, oh, everything's built in, right? That's what they would say. Everything's built in for you. And there would just be like a CenturyLink box. And I
Yeah.
think to myself, it's like, okay, well, like then if 90% of people are just using the CenturyLink box with the default settings, there's so much collision happening and everyone's using the same device all the time. I'm like, I need the power, right? Now,
Yeah.
here's one thing that's really fascinating is, so you've tricked in with hardware the Starlink into giving you what you want. Now, and probably for a reason, right? Because using your own devices gives you a lot more flexibility, more power, and you can do other things with it as well.
Yeah, well, I want to say, like, in terms of the crowded frequencies, I do get concerned about all the IoT stuff I have
Yeah.
hogging my Wi-Fi. Honestly, I'm very tempted to establish 3 networks on channels as far apart as they can be. The Starlink one, because I can't get rid of it, my computer one, and then an IoT one that's just all those devices. Let them be, again, Wireshark and promiscuous mode. You can just, whoo
Yeah,
just bonjour alone. Everyone just advertising themselves.
it's true. We have specifically three networks in the house as well. So our setup is this. We have this, for all intents and purposes, what you have is we have the Netgear Orbi, and the Orbi Pro, I think I got it on sale. It's on Slick Deals, and it's a mesh network. So I have the main, one upstairs, and then down here I have the satellite. Now, what's kind of cool is that it also has backhaul, and what that means is that it's kind of cool. Is right on this computer is the satellite. So underneath this computer here is the satellite. So it's like upstairs over there on the other side of the house is the main router. And then it creates a mesh network to this satellite. So things that are further away can connect to this satellite here, or things outside, if we're outside or doing stuff on this side of the house versus that side of the house, it'll connect to the closest one here. Now, it's a mesh network via wireless, so it uses mesh stuff, right? So it's happening. Now, in this scenario, though, you could think of it as like, what if my laptop that's sitting right here decides to connect wirelessly to the satellite that's here, that's actually getting internet from the other one? Is that better than just connecting to the other one? So there's backhaul. And what backhaul does is it will take the mesh network, and there's Ethernet out. So I actually have an Ethernet cable coming into this computer. So I'm using the mesh, but instead of doing wireless to the laptop, I just do wired, which is kind of nice.
Okay.
Backhaul.
I think that made sense to me. I haven't used that one before.
It's cool.
I'm not really sure how to say it, so I'll let you just keep saying.
It's like you're hauling stuff at braces.
Backhaul.
It's like you're hauling. You have a wheelbarrow, and you're hauling stuff, hauling stuff around, but you're doing it backwards.
Have mesh networks just not been like the greatest thing in Wi-Fi in the last 10 years, 5 years,
so cool.
10 years, whatever? It's been the best. Probably 10 years now. I should say, Mr. Elon would like you to go buy another Starlink router.
I saw that.
Because it turns out they mesh. So that was actually the debate I was having. I had my own mesh set up. I forget the company. It's the one everyone uses. Who cares? Actually, I need to update all the devices. But I was already invested. I had a million little mesh devices. I wasn't going to go buy a million little more mesh devices. I like my mesh. And so it was tempting, though. The problem is, I believe Starlink wanted like $100 or $200 for each one of these
Wow.
routers, and the meshes are getting up to that price point. That's terrible, but they used to be like $30 a piece. That's what was so much fun about the meshes. And so I still have a lot of that cheap hardware, and I want to continue to use that cheap hardware.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's a debate. I'll have to think through. Well, especially once I get my automatic lawn mowing robot going, that's going to put some Wi-Fi strain on, and I'm going to have to make sure my mesh is extended all the way out.
Well, and the real problem that you run into is those IoT devices, which is why we run three. We run three
You do it?
specific.
It's amazing. Great.
So we have almost all of our main devices, so laptops, cell phones, tablets, Apple TVs, the things that are the Apple TV, you could say is IoT-ish, but it's got a nice Wi-Fi chip in
main
it.
device. The problem I've run into, though, it is one of those in-between devices, because if you use any of HomeKit, home whatever,
Yeah.
my Apple TV keeps wanting to be the home hub or whatever. It keeps trying to be that thing.
Yeah.
So I am a little bit nervous if I ever do it. But once again, for the millionth time, I'm in the Jeff Bezos family of home dingus devices. So
Yeah.
hopefully there won't be any conflicts.
Yeah. And I have those devices on the main Kashyyyk 5G. That's not even my Wi-Fi network, which is Kashyyyk.
Good to know. Everyone drive by.
Chewbacca's home planet. So so that is the main. Now, because once you pick an SSID, it has to be your SSID forever, and you can't ever change the password. It's just impossible. So we went through this transition. The Kashyyyk 5G is the WPA3. It's the strongest, most secure network It's like 5,000 bit encryption, Frank Kruger, 5 bajillion. It's faster, stronger. You don't even got it. You don't even have it in your Starlink. It's garbage.
Doesn't matter. Everyone does a little dictionary attack against you. So just make sure your password. I know you can't change your password. Just make sure it's not in any of the password dictionaries. Okay?
Password 1 2 3.
At least do.
So we have that, and that's where most of our devices are on. Now, that being said, we additionally have baby Kashyyyk, just normal Kashyyyk. This is the tried and true classic legacy network. And now this network is for the IoT devices. It is the 2.4 gigahertz. I'm talking WPA mixed mode. Let's just have a fun time going on. XYZ, right? And then we have a guest network, which is Tatooine, because you only visit on occasion. It's too sandy and dusty there.
I'm sorry. That was a good point that you brought up about the frequencies. I forget that all the time. Like, it depends on the hardware. Some of them handle mixed frequency better than others, but there are some that handle it terribly.
Yeah.
And I should probably double check my networks to make sure that's not biting me in the behind.
Yeah, and some of them handle that. That's what we did. As I said, okay, 5G is only 5G. The 2.4 is only 2. No mixing and matching around. Just it is what it is, people.
Yeah.
And then also the problem also is the authentication mode is like with WPA3, you can also do mixed authentication mode, which will allow backwards compatibility on stuff. I was like, okay, like, nope. 5G is only WPA3. That's it. Modern devices. This is the secure, fast tube. The 2.4, it's just a wild west out there. And then what I did is for Tatooine, it's a
desert planet.
It's a desert planet. So it's a free for all. So that one is actually a mixed mode 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So I got a lot happening because like guests might come. Like I have to be like, okay, you can get either speed basically. I don't actually know how that works inside of the box. Like, is there?
I was wondering if you were doing that at a guest network, because I mean, once you're up to 2, you're just like, well, 3. No,
you can do 4.
But the problem, you can do 4 with your mesh.
I can do 4. I can do 4 total SSIDs, and that addition
really. Sorry, I'm just getting into the radio frequency stuff. I'm really curious though, like if one's on mixed mode and one's on 5 gigahertz only.
They're all
if you're getting okay.
They're all. It's all
I shall join 2024 and check the settings screens of my routers.
I can look at my Netgear right now. Now, the other thing though is obviously like the
2024,
satellite.
right?
This is 2020. This was I got this last year. Yeah, 4 SSIDs.
That's nice. If
Uh,
they let you do mixed or alternating frequencies with different IDs on the same mesh, that's pretty nice.
yeah. And then
That's a
there's
good
that
little
too.
radio.
And then Kashyyyk. Kashyyy's like, I do everything, bro. Which is great. Now, what's really cool is you can also do SSID separation too. So you can do a whole separation mode. You can do all sorts. It's really advanced stuff. Now, the other cool part about this is that each of the satellites and the router obviously have a Ethernet coming in, but they also have Ethernets coming out. Each individual Ethernet you can assign to a specific like sub network. So you can say this
Yeah, that's
Ethernet
nice.
is on the IoT. So if you had an IoT device, you can keep the IoT device on that SSID sub network that is created for it,
Yeah.
which is like freaking wild.
Did you choose fun IPs to go with your fun names?
No,
Your subnet IPs?
There's all defaults now.
Boring.
I know. I should have.
.3.4.5 boring.
I know. They're all just the defaults. But anyways, yeah, so I guess you could do that with the mesh. Now, I guess yeah, that's the problem is like with the Starlink, I feel
You're
like
selling me.
yeah, it's good, but yeah, it's like it's good, but then also the problem that you have is like, is it as good as these companies have been doing routers for like 25 years? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not so worried about that. I mean, I feel like if they can build an antenna that can talk to space, that they can handle 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, I would assume. I don't know, maybe I'm making assumptions, but I still want to be hardwired to it, which is ironic because I'm talking to space, but I want a hardwired connection from space to the antenna to my computer. And that's what actually got us on this silly conversation that we're having. Was I was complaining to you that I have to run a long cable underneath my house, and you're like, you thought my router situation was hilarious, but I think I've made sense of it. I think I've explained myself well enough, but I think I don't have to explain why I want a cable. It's because I grew up in the 90s. Cables are better. I know Wi-Fi is fine. I know it's fast. I know all the gigahertz. It's not good enough. And the channels. I want a cable. Cables are better.
Like every opportunity I have, like in my off, in the other office, it's the same thing. Like it's on the back part. I have like everything is just backhauled and like it's all just, I'm all about hauling stuff all over the place. But like I'm all about if I can get a physical cable, I'm gonna get a physical cable, even if it is through one of the satellites or whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm still gonna do that. Okay, so let me get this right. You're gonna take a cable, Ethernet cable, and you're gonna run it from the computer you're sitting at right now, and you're gonna run it under your house to the Starlink router.
No.
To your router.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, none of the above. You mentioned before I have 50 feet to work with.
Yes.
And I recently repositioned the Starlink, so it's a cute little mast sticking up off my house. So now I can catch some wind on my roof with that. So that's cute. I like it a lot. It looks like the Jetsons a little bit. I dig it. So I have a 50-foot cable that can go from there. So if I can manage, I would actually really love, which is the cable that has both data and electricity in it. I would love to get that cable actually all the way to my office. But the 50 feet is really pushing the limits of the distance I need to cover. And for that reason, I think I want to go underneath my house and do it up to the floor really tidy-like, so that I'm not going around a bunch of furniture and doorways and, silly stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just take the absolute most direct route possible. If you had an attic, I would do an attic. No, I don't really have an attic in that area.
It's gotta be something.
I have
right?
windows. No, there's There's big windows. Yeah, so they didn't put an attic in that part. Must be insulation. One would hope there's some insulation up there, but that's it.
Maybe.
Maybe. Right. So if that cable can actually reach all the way to my office, you just put the router in the office. Bob's your uncle. Everything's easy. If sadly that 50 feet does not make it all the way, that's when I have to do something ugly like run an Ethernet cable from the office to the Starlink router and have the Starlink router someplace that's not the office. And that's
Yeah,
sad.
that makes sense because like the Starlink cable is 50 feet, even if you run it 3 feet. Like it's still,
Yes.
I guess you could buy a shorter
I
one.
have one cable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
one
correct.
cable.
I'm sure he'll sell you another cable.
I'm
Yes.
sure he'll sell you a cable. I saw that there's shorter cables, which also, by the way, you're not even allowed to look at Starlink accessories unless you're a Starlink customer and can sign in, which is shenanigans. You can't even see how much they
It's
are.
awesome. It's
That's bad.
hilarious. It's all
Okay.
in the app. Same app that you
So,
use for your router. It's
oh, okay, you can
hilarious.
buy it. Yeah, this is ridiculous. Okay, so
Yeah.
you are going to run this 50-foot cable. You're going to get here. Then you're going to get a shorter Ethernet cable and then run it to your computer.
Yeah, well, once the Ethernet is in the office, then I have I have a proper switch.
Yeah.
I have hardwired subnets. I don't have Wi-Fi subnets or anything like that,
Hmm.
but I maintain like three or four good old fashioned Ethernet IP subnets.
Nice.
Good old, yeah, hardwired away. And so I have lots of good network equipment for that. And that's all I want. And I use that mostly for like, NAS and remoting into local machines where
Yeah.
I just hate latency. So
Yeah.
all that has to be 100% hardwired with
Oh, yeah.
as fast as I can afford, to be literal, to be honest, because I hate latency that much.
Yeah, I have I don't need it now because I've reduced the amount of devices in my office. But when we first got set up, no, do I still have it? No, I don't have it. No, it's in the closet. But I have a Dell Industrial,
Nice,
20
yeah.
port network switch.
Rad.
It was like $200 or whatever, and it's like
Mhm.
made of metal. It's like legit for like a server rack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a lots of lights, and I like that there's lots of lights on it, and that makes me very happy. So one of those is like a good that's when we're talking about hardwiring everything. Like we're
Yeah.
saying like everything. I don't even care what it is. It's going to be hardwired. This is happening.
Well, a couple of years ago, I had a fun little, call it like a rat hunt. I don't know. I was looking for any device that when I plugged it in, it dropped the speed of the
Ooh.
switch, because sometimes a good switch will adapt, but it's still hard on the network. You don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because you might end up going through something that's dumber than a switch, like a hub, and then everything's broken. Um, so I was just going around to every device. I'm like, "Are you slow? Are you slow? Are you slow?
Yeah,
Which one of you is ruining
who's
my
the
speeds?"
10100? Who's the 10100? You know what I mean? Yeah.
And it was so fun because, like, yeah, I don't know. I just had a computer. A lot of motherboards just have Ethernet built into them. That one was just being futzy. So I went on Amazon and bought a good old $14 network card just because it would guarantee. What do you think I'm at? Am I at gigabit or 10 gigabit? Whichever one I
Like
could afford.
gigabit. Yeah.
Probably gigabit.
I think that's actually what's really fascinating is most of the things like the speed that we're going to get from my internet service provider, I can't even get, I can get gig. I can get gig, but if I get gig, then the upload doesn't improve at all. So I'm like, I'm not going to
Sure.
pay extra for the extra
Right.
300
Funny,
megs per. I don't need the extra download. I need the upload, right?
Yeah.
But I think you make a good point, which is nowadays, and it wasn't the case until recently, and I actually have to check all my devices, but internally, inside your house, if you're doing NASes and you're doing, file transfer and you got like a real network, the 10 gigabit, mine's definitely not a 10 gig. Mine's definitely just a gigabit,
Yeah.
but I'm very curious which of my devices would support that today, a 10 gigabit thing, because it's 10x which would be why that's really fast.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think it's my NAS that's holding me down. There's a few things that I know that definitely wouldn't support 10 over here.
Yeah.
The NAS is a little bit dumb because I have some old spinning disks in there, so it's not like the network connection to that really matters. But again, it's that perfect purity of the entire network running at that ultra high speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite there. But what I will say is all my remoting into the Linux machines works just fine at gigabit, so I haven't been too upset. That's been fine. there aren't too many things that can actually stress the network, right? Like it's hard to get up to those speeds.
It's hard to get up to. I think the thing that really surprisingly, like the wired, it's pretty hard. The wireless though, the reason I got the mesh network and I had these different ports is because of the IoT devices. Because I definitely went
Yeah.
in. I mean, I have Zigbee here, which is nice, but I know
Mhm.
you went all in on the Wi-Fi, and you always have about 1,000 Wi-Fi IoT. Even here, it's just like
I do.
I open up I open up my Netgear, and it's like 23 things are connected to it. What are
23.
23
Yeah.
things? What is even on? Let me look at like this one. Yeah, 18. Like,
There I look.
how do I have all of these? What are these devices even connected to it? Like that is one of my favorite things about the Netgear one. It's like you have 23 devices. Who are these devices? What is S380 and Smart Innovation? Oh, I know what SwitchBot is. Those are, yeah, I have like a bunch of random color light bulbs. This one just says Apple. Of course, I have all my cameras, Apple, Google Chromecast. Even what is that? Apple. And there's 98 disconnected devices, which at some point they probably changed their names or whatever, something random. But again, it's like really, that's why getting those IoT devices and that Wi-Fi stuff off the network is there. Actually, I do want to do I want to do a whole episode on smart devices. We'll keep this and stressing the network because I want to talk about in our next episode or next episode getting things off of the internet and getting them into your local device into here. And I'm talking Home Assistant and or Hubitat. And these are two devices that enable you to connect all of your smart devices and run everything locally, which means if your internet goes out, everything still works. I've had that happen at this house. We were out and the internet went down, and guess what? Nothing. Automations don't even run. You know what I mean? It's like, oh man, that's kind of scary. Gets you thinking.
I'm glad I put switches everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
So,
don't want to be at the mercy of the light bulb.
no,
It's
you do not.
tyrannical.
You do not. Yes, I agree, and I'll say that is 100% correct, Frank. You do not want to be at the mercy of the light bulb, and we're not. We're just very much anti that. Everything is a smart switch. That's the way to go. Very happy about it. All right, that's gonna do it for this week's Merge Conflict. So until next time, Frank, no more words from you. We got to go. I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.